John Keats and Rabindranath Tagore, two great idealists, belong to two different times, places, and used two different languages. However, astonishingly enough, Indian polymath Tagore's poetry possessed similar sensibilities and idealistic vision to Keats's poetry, composed almost a century earlier. World poets like Keats and Tagore have always opened their soul windows to that intense vision and longing desire to see the unknown and the unnamed. Their devotion and spiritual illumination had in it a deep understanding of life, the frailty of love, poignant morbidity, insatiable passion, doubt in the ephemeral life, and the disharmony of the world filled up their hearts with profound agony. So they leave the mundane life and take refuge to imagination. But eventually they go through some sort of a metamorphosis and come back to accept the realities of life. In this short presentation, we'll look at how the stalwarts shared the same vision about the daily tenets of life and how Keats continued to be relevant in today's trying times.
Keats wrote about nature as a source of beauty and as a refuge from the stresses and strains of life in the city. As a poet who celebrated the five senses, Keats loved nature for its sensuous appeal. In the Ode to Autumn, Keats reflects on the cycle of life and the interconnectedness of maturity, death, and rebirth, similar to the way one season gives way to another. Autumn is represented as a peasant woman, engaged in agrarian activities as the synesthetic images record. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours.
A similar image also haunts Tagore's poetic imagination, describing the spirit of autumn as Anandaloke, or the white-attired goddess, whose glory is revealed through the rain-bathed landscape and whose smile is reflected in the clear blue sky and in the full moon night, lulled by the chorus of the hedge crickets.
আশিনে নগর আনন্দ উৎসব নব অতি নির্মল অতি নির্মল অতি নির্মল উজ্জ্বল সাজে ভুবনে নব শারদ লক্ষ্মী বিরাজে নব ইন্দুলেখা অলকে ঝলকে অতি নির্মল হাস বিভাস বিকাশ আকাশ নীলাম্বুজ মাঝে সে তো বুঝি সে তো বিনা বাজে উঠিছে আলাপ মৃদু মধুর বেয়াগতানে চন্দ্র ঘরে উল্লসিত পল্লবনে ঝিল্লিরবে তন্দ্রায়ণে রে দিকে দিকে কত বাণী নব নব কত ভাষা ঝড় ঝড় রসধারা।
It is quite obvious that Tagore and Keats possess an innate instinct to fly high and merge into infinity to experience eternal bliss. In fact, Keats's fancied mental flight begins in Ode to Psyche, and eventually in the Ode to Autumn, the poet comes back to materiality. In the Ode to a Nightingale, the elfish song of the bird cannot entice the poet anymore. Thus we find him writing adieu. The fancy cannot cheat anymore. Beauty to Keats is illumination, the state of attaining ultimate spiritual bliss. Keats shows psychoaesthetic interest in To Fanny, an eulogy to his beloved Fanny Brawne. It is a stamp of his romantic imagination. Silence here becomes music. The poem is also mentionable for having Keats's signature spirituality. What can I do to drive away remembrance from my eyes? For they have seen, aye, an hour ago, my brilliant queen. Touch has a memory. Oh, say, love, say, what can I do to kill it and be free in my old liberty? When every fair one that I saw was fair enough to catch me in but half a snare, not keep me there. When, however poor, of particular things my muse had wings, and ever ready was to take a course, whither I bent her force, unintellectual, yet divine to me. Divine, I say. What seabird over the sea is a philosopher, the while he goes, winging along where the great water throws?
Deeply inspired by Keats in the poems of Chitra, an eternal woman engulfs Tagore's whole existence as if he has found his most coveted Jibon Devota, or life deity. In many of Tagore's works, rendezvous with the formless is his main interest. Tagore's famous line, "Within limits, you remain limitless," has become the byword for Romanticism. Tagore is bemused by the feeling of unseen.
সীমার মাঝে অসীম তুমি বাজাও আপন সুর, আমার মধ্যে তোমার প্রকাশ তাই এত মধুর। কত মর্মে কত গন্ধে কত গানে কত ছন্দে কত বর্ণে কত গন্ধে কত গানে কত ছন্দে অরূপ তোমার রূপের লীলায় জাগে হৃদয় ফুল। আমার মধ্যে তোমার শোভা এমন সুমধুর, সীমার মাঝে অসীম তুমি বাজাও আপন সুর।
The most important message that he serves is that delight and melancholy, or joy and sorrow, are two inseparable parts of our lives. Sorrow and anxieties do not belittle the possibilities of life, rather, they are necessary for happiness' sake. Joy is not perfect or complete without an acute feeling of sorrow. It's very similar to what Keats mentions as death is life's high meed.
Keats's poetry has always opened doors to come home. A snippet from his ode to Grecian Urn. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know.
Tagore sees truth as immaterial cognizance rather than materiality as the essential form of beauty. In this capacity, his ideas of truth and beauty peculiarly coincide with the ideas of the Romantics, especially Keats. He illustrates that the idea of beauty as truth, not bound by materiality, and is hence fundamentally aesthetic.
Anandaloke Mongaloke Viraju Shottu Sundaro Mohima Tabu Udbhashito Mahagunu Majhe বিশ্বজগৎ মৌনি ভূষণ বেষ্টিত চরণে আনন্দলোকে মঙ্গলালোকে বিরাজ সত্য সুন্দর।
To love death and to treat death with so much ease and comfort is something unique to the literature of both Keats and Rabindranath. The emotions with which death is garlanded on a high pedestal of divine spirit on which the verses focus will remain immortal for all times. According to Romanticism, the idea of death is seen as never-ending, eternal sleeping, and what happens to us every single day is nothing but scenes of a dream, something which is not going to last forever. Happiness and joy are nothing but ghosts, pleasures that take place for a moment and then vanish without being noticed anymore. Can death be sleep when life is but a dream and scenes of bliss pass as a phantom by? The transient pleasures as a vision seem, and yet we think the greatest pains to die. How strange it is that man on earth should roam and lead a life of woe, but not forsake his rugged path, nor dare he view alone his future doom, which is but to wake. Death is described as something soft and serene in the romantic and tragic poetry of John Keats. Tagore's thought is akin to that of Keats. The closeness to death is brought out by Keats in the famous poem Ode to a Nightingale in a ceremonious way. And for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many amused rhyme. To take into the air my quiet breath, now more than ever seems it rich to die, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Rabindranath in the same vein regards death as a soulmate, who is even equated with Madhava or Lord Krishna in one of his famous songs of Bhanusingher Podabuli.
Resonating the same philosophy in Gitanjali, Tagore accepts that death is the fulfillment of life. And because I love this life, I know I shall love death as well. Tagore confesses the inevitability of melancholy. Earthly truth gives a blow to his spiritual obsession. He shows stoical traits by accepting pain and death.
জীবন মরণের সীমানা ছাড়ায়ে মন ভুলে আমার রয়েছ দাঁড়ায়ে জীবন মরণের সীমানা ছাড়ায়ে এ মোর হৃদয়ে বিজন আকাশে তোমার মহাধন আলোতে ঢাকাশে গভীর কি আশায় নিবিড় জীবন মরণের সীমানা ছাড়ায়ে বন্ধু হে আমার রয়েছ নাড়ায়ে জীবন মরণের।
Keats and Tagore, on the way to muse acutely over life, come to know the purposes of joy and sorrow, beauty and decay, permanence and transience, and attain poetic nirvana. There is a satisfactory reconciliation between imagination and reality, immortality and mortality, as well as idealism and materialism. Life may be short and perishable, but is not insignificant. Rather, it is delightful, and death is its fruition. John Keats was a true genius of an artist who, a few centuries ago, through his words, instructed us humans living in a pestilence-stricken world to live an ideal life, aware of the immortal beauty inherent to the mortal world.